We know that communication is key when building relationships with parents. Whether you're a veteran teacher or a rookie teacher, the tips I'm sharing with you today are going to help you build that parent-teacher relationship and, in the long run, help your students succeed in your classroom this year. Stay tuned. What's up, rock stars? My name is Farah, and here on my channel, I strive to bring actionable tips and strategies for you to use in your classroom, your growing or aspiring edupreneur business, and along the way, I like to share some entertainment and fun from my life as a full-time traveling edupreneur. Communication with parents can help you understand your child's home life. It can give you an insight into how the student behaves, acts, or interacts with the family at home, and might explain some of their behaviors in your classroom. Most importantly, communication with parents is key and crucial for your student to succeed in your classroom. Today, I want to share with you some tips that are going to help you have effective parent-teacher communication and thus help your students succeed this year. The first thing you're going to want to make sure that you have in place is a way to track your parent communication. Let's consider this scenario. It's the middle of the year and a student in your classroom is failing math. Your principal comes to you and asks, have you contacted this student's parents? You say yes, and the next question your principal has is, did you document the communication? Creating this communication log is simple, and you have a couple of ways that you can do this. The main important things for you to make sure that your communication log includes is a space for the student's name, the parent's name, the date, any comments that happen during this communication, as well as maybe a place for a parent to sign if you're having this communication in person. You might also want to include a space for you to include how you contacted this parent, so you know, was it a phone call, was it an email, or was it an in-person communication? Now, like I said, you could do this one of two ways. You could have a parent communication log for every single student that you keep in their personal folders to where you're able to only have that student's communication with their parents on that log, or you can create a class log where you are just documenting each time you have to contact a parent. I personally prefer doing it where I have a parent log for each student so that I can quickly pull that student's folder and see all of the parent communication that I've had with that parent during the year. This is extremely helpful during parent-teacher conference time. Now, a key thing to remember when you're keeping these parent communication logs is you're going to want to file it away. You're going to want to keep it somewhere where you can get to it easily, and you're going to want to have that in a place where if your principal asks you for it or you have to pull it for a parent meeting, you can get to it quickly and easily and know where it is. So the easiest way to do this is to keep a student folder for each student or a communication folder where you're going to file those logs away so that you can get to them easily when you need them. Once you have a plan in place on how you're going to track your parent communication, you're going to want to think about some key effective strategies in communicating with the parents in your classroom. At the beginning of the year, make sure that you share your desire for strong parent communication with your parents, and make sure you let them know how you plan on communicating with them throughout the year. There are a number of ways that you can communicate with your parents, whether it's through phone calls, text messages, emails, or using a parent communication app. You just need to make sure that you let your parents know how you plan on communicating with them and how they can communicate with you back. In addition to letting your parents know how you're going to be communicating with them, make sure that you let them know what your expectations are for your students at the beginning of the year. By letting your parents know the expectations right from the start, then there are not going to be any surprises along the way. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not still going to have some parents who forget that you actually set those expectations at the beginning of the year, but by setting them and having that documentation that you shared this with your parents, then along the way, you're able to pull from that and show where you did set these expectations up from the very beginning, and they shouldn't be a surprise. In order for you to have open and honest parent communication, your parents are going to need to trust you. Yes, trust does take time to build, but in the very beginning, make sure that you state with your parents that you can be trusted. Assure your parents that you are never going to discuss their child with another parent or with another teacher unless that teacher also interacts with their child and you are collaborating with that teacher for the success of the student. student. This may seem like a duh moment, but it's very easy to be talking in the hallway about a student and be overheard by someone who's not supposed to hear these comments. Make sure that your parents are assured that you will be mindful of when and where you talk to them and talk to other teachers that need to be discussing about their student. Make sure that your parents know that you're going to be mindful about when and where you discuss their student with them or with other teachers. You are the person that spends the most time with this student. Make sure that your parents know that they will be the first ones that you communicate any concerns you have with the student's academic or behavior issues in the classroom. Make sure your parents know that you're not going to go to someone else first. You're going to come to them and discuss these issues with them first and foremost. Another way to promote effective parent communication is to make sure that your parents know that you have an open door policy. Make sure that your parents know that they can come to you with any concern that they have with regard to the student, be it academic, home life, personal, whatever the issue that they need to speak to you about. Make sure that they know that you have an open door policy and you want to hear anything that might be affecting your student or their student in your classroom so that you can make sure that that student gets the support that they need in the classroom so that they can have the success that you want to see them have that year in your classroom. Give parents effective ways to get a hold of you. Now, if you're not good at checking emails, don't have them email you. Whatever way you're going to have parents communicate with you, make sure that it's something that you're going to be honest about and you are going to check regularly. My favorite way is to let my parents have my phone number and they can text me whenever they need to or if they have an issue with the student. Now, I know a lot of teachers say, no, don't do this because they're not going to be checking and getting text messages at all hours of the evening, but I was able to set just parameters and office hours. And the thing about it is there's an off button on your phone and you don't have to respond to text messages that you get if they're outside office hours. Another great way to do this is with parent apps that allow you to communicate with parents without giving them your phone number. And I'm going to share a few of those with you. The first app I want to share with you is Classloom. Now, Classloom is a social media platform that is free for teachers to use with their parents. And it allows you to actually create some groups when you might need to and effectively communicate with your parents on the platform. With this app, parents and teachers can share information back and forth. You can send messages, you can post notices, you can do a lot with this app. So I encourage you to check it out. And best thing of all, it's free. Class Messenger is another app that you might want to look into, and it works very similar to text messaging without giving your phone number out. And it's a little bit more private than maybe using something like Classloom, where you're actually posting to like a group page or a classroom page. But also with class messaging, you can send group messages as well. If you need to send something out to the entire class or the entire class of parents, you can send a group message as well. So make sure you check that one out too. Now, Class Dojo is one of my favorite apps, and I love using it for not only behavior management, but also for parent communication. And Class Dojo has been around since 2011 and been keeping parent-teacher communication strong since then. Class Dojo allows you to communicate with parents throughout the day with regard to their behavior by basically giving points for different behaviors, and it will automatically update and notify the parent right in the moment so the parent can see how their student is doing throughout the day. But it also allows you to have a chat feature with each individual parent so that you can chat back and forth about issues or concerns that you might have with the student as well. Definitely going to want to jump over and check out Class Dojo. Now, if you want to be able to communicate with your parents through something similar to text messaging, but you're not comfortable with giving them your phone number, you can use something like Remind. Now, I love the Remind app, and I've used it in many, many different ways for many years. And you can basically sign up for an account and then sign up your class, and it will give you a class code that you will give to your parents. Your parents will text that class code to a number, and it will sign them up to receive text messages from the Remind app so that you can send messages to individual parents, or you can send messages to your entire class as a group text. But the best thing about it is parents can respond just as if they were sending a text message, but it'll actually go through the app and the parents don't have your phone number or personal information. Now, while there are several different apps out there that you can use for parent communication, the best tried and true way is to have a face-to-face meeting with your parents, or at least a phone call. Now, I really do believe that having that face-to-face parent meeting or phone call is the best when you're dealing with a serious situation. If it's just day-to-day things going on in the classroom, or a concern over missed homework, or how a student maybe did on a spelling test, that would be perfectly fine to do through the apps or classroom information that just needs to be put out to your students' parents. However, if it is a serious issue, I do still recommend that you have that one-on-one parent meeting, or at least a phone call with that parent to discuss the issue going on. Now, I'm going to leave some links down below for all the apps that I've shared here so that you can check them out yourself. Now, inevitably, when dealing with parents, there is going to come a day where you are going to have that angry parent that is coming down the hallway and is headed straight for your door. And you might be asking, what am I going to do when that happens? The first tip for dealing with an angry parent is to stay calm. It's not going to do any good for both of you to be completely off your rocker and angry and emotions running high. The best thing you can do is to stay calm when you see that parent, or you know that parent is coming for a meeting that is just super angry. Stay calm, take some deep breaths. Maybe you need a stress ball in your classroom, but you have got to stay calm so that you can keep the situation under control. The next tip is to just listen. Oftentimes when people are angry, they just want somebody to listen to them. They just need to vent and get it off their chest before you offer any type of solution. A lot of times what they think they're angry about is not really what they're angry about, and by letting them vent and just get it off their chest, and by just sitting there and listening, maybe you'll be able to actually pinpoint what the real problem is before you start offering solutions. Now, if you're ever in a situation where you might not feel safe, or you think it's a situation that warrants having a witness around, make sure you get a mediator, especially if this is a situation that's been ongoing, or maybe you and this parent have kind of butted heads before. Go ahead and get a third party to come in and sit in as a mediator, because this mediator can often be in there and they are completely detached emotionally from the situation, and they're going to have a level head, a cooler head, a calmer head, and be able to see both sides and maybe help both parties be able to communicate what they're trying to communicate in a better manner. Just get a mediator. Above all, if you have an angry parent sitting down for a conference with you, make sure that you acknowledge their concern. Parents don't often come into our classrooms with these ideas, or they're not just out to get us. They have legitimate concerns about their students or something that's going on in your classroom. Most often it's something that they perceive is going on in your classroom, because let's face it, most of the information they're going to be getting about what's going on in your classroom is coming from their student. And if you teach younger students, sometimes there are some things that are lost in translation. So just make sure you acknowledge their concern before automatically jumping in with solutions, because oftentimes it's just a matter of perception, and maybe what they're angry about is not even really happening. And once they see that and they understand that, then they're going to calm down and you're going to have a better solution to the problem. But if you don't at least acknowledge their concern, it's going to put them off and make you think that you don't care about them having concerns about their student in the first place. So always acknowledge the concerns that parents have. Now, as with any situation, you might want to head it off at the pass. And if you see body language or facial expressions that you think are going to lead to a bomb exploding and emotions just running over, it might be time to take a break. So be proactive. If it's time to take a break, then everybody take a break, and you can suggest that. Maybe you need to bring somebody else in, like I said, with that mediator. Maybe that mediator is going to be able to say, hey, I think we've been at this for too long. It's time to take a break. But be proactive. Don't let it get to the point where there's no coming back because everything is just blown up. If you see that body language, those facial expressions that are going to lead to that blow up, just be proactive and take a break. Last but not least, let's go full circle back to that parent communication log. I cannot stress enough how important it is to log the communication with your parents. Whether it is a heated discussion or it is just a normal everyday back and forth discussion or text message back and forth with your parents, you've got to document that correspondence, because in the long run, there may come a time where you have got to explain to your principal, or you've got a situation where you've got to show that you have had this communication more than once. And if you're not able to document it and you're not able to pull that documentation, then you're stuck with just your word. And trust me, you don't want to be in a situation like that where you don't have proof that you've actually had that communication with a parent. So document it, log it, and file it away. Parent communication is one of the hardest parts about being a teacher. Let's face it, we all wish we could just shut our door and teach, but we really do need to communicate with our parents so that we can work together for the success of the students in our classroom. I get it, teachers. There are some times where you just wish you didn't have to communicate with parents because it can be sticky sometimes. But I can tell you by following these tips and strategies, it will make your parent communication a little easier and in the long run, more successful for the students in your classroom. If you're looking for more tips and strategies for your classroom or growing edupreneur business, make sure you check out the videos on your screen. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to make sure that you get notified when we go live or upload a new video. Thanks so much for watching and keep being an educational rock star.